Okay, let's look at the big news that came out of the courts yesterday, which is the headline of the Standard this morning. Inside deal that brought Sonko back. And the Standard has given this coverage on page 6 and 7. He was the black sheep, the ostracized and hounded out of office. And now the former governor, Mike Sonko, has flown back into the waiting arms of the president and the Azimio flag bearers, Odinga and Karua. What's the bargain? Will Sonko deliver Mombasa and Nairobi? How does Nairobi come in Ndu? Read the story.
All right, so how does Nairobi come into this? It's on page 6 and 7 on the Standard this morning. And so this is according to sources, obviously, that sought anonymity. So start off in the middle of the story. Faced with the possibility of being locked out of Mombasa governor race, Sonko moved between the courts and the electoral agency's disputes tribunal before the decision was finally delivered yesterday, handing him a reprieve. All right, so it did not help that Sonko blamed the government for his downfall. It was thus a surprise that Sonko suddenly appeared to be embraced by the upper echelon of Azimio, Uhuru, Raila and Karua. Sources close to the former governor suggest that his endearment with Azimio could be to benefit the candidacy of Jubilee Nairobi governor candidate Polycarp Igathe, who will face off with UDA's Johnson Sakaja. According to sources, the former governor's return to the top political circles was spurred by Monday's gubernatorial debate between Igathe and Sakaja. Sources say the top brass within Azimio felt that from the debate, the Nairobi Senator Sakaja had emerged as the most appealing candidate to the public, necessitating them to come up with a contingency plan to ensure that Igathe win come August 9th. The Azimio leaders reached out to Sonko Tuesday, urging him to use his influence in Nairobi to rally support for Igathe. The former governor accepted, but in return asked the coalition honchos for a fair chance to vie for the Mombasa governorship. So, I quote, the deal that was struck was that Sonko must deliver Nairobi for Azimio, and in return he will be given a fair chance to vie for the governorship in Mombasa, where he equally enjoys a huge following. That is why, for the first time in a long time, you saw Sonko accompany the president to issue title deeds in Ruai on Tuesday, where he campaigned for Igathe, flanked by Babu Owino and Kananu and Lieutenant General Mohammed Badi. Okay? So this is what you see.
So this is an unnamed source.
Anonymity.
Does this story qualify the source in terms of their access to knowledge of what they're saying? Any other rumor monger in the street could, be saying this, of course.
So you're saying any other rumor monger in the street could then be a source?
Yes. So, this person who is the source of, this is the deal. The deal is, you see, Sonko, for a long time you have not seen Sonko anywhere where the president is. And now suddenly you see Sonko at a presidential event, at a president's event. And the next day you see the tide turning in favor of Sonko. The deal that has taken place, backroom conversations and deals is that, you shall help us deliver Nairobi, and then also we shall give you a fighting chance for Mombasa. You go and deter in Mombasa. Now, this is implying very many things by this one source, or by the multiple sources.
Who's said to be close to the former governor, right?
Close to the source. It implies a number of things. Number one, that there's a deal that's taken place at the highest levels. This is the president, Raila, Martha Karua, and others. And that those ones have been able to influence the judiciary.
Look.
Such that when the court was delivering its judgment yesterday, then they had been spoken to. This is the implication of that statement.
No matter how thin you slice it, it doesn't look good for the judiciary here.
Why?
Because many would argue that there's nothing like a coincidence when it comes to political play, right? Look at the way things have happened, the succession in which things have happened over the last 72 hours. That there's a petition in court, and then the judgment is given. The judgment is given in favor of Sonko to be able to run for the Mombasa governor position. A day after he's seen with the president, then giving out title deeds, or rather opening a road in Wiki, and then on Wednesday he's giving out title deeds in Ruai, right? These things are happening, within play of one another.
Yes.
And then at the same time, then he is then throned as the golden-eyed boy to be able to deliver Nairobi votes. These things just happen out of the blue, one to the other. You cannot run away from the fact that people are going to speculate heavily on this, that what could possibly have happened. And that's why I'm saying it doesn't shine a very good light on the judiciary here, because we are still looking at the issues of integrity. We are still looking at the questions and asking ourselves why. If somebody has been found to have been of certain nature that doesn't allow them to then come back into office, suddenly it's happening.
It is not
and
sudden.
then he's been crowned.
What is sudden about it?
Yes.
That you're seeing it
This
happen.
entire
It has
thing,
been in court for a while. Sonko himself moved to court.
This camaraderie
The
that we are
the court
seeing
listened
between
to
the
Sonko.
camaraderie that we are seeing between the highest echelons of these parties and Sonko is sudden.
That is sudden.
That's the suddenly I'm
And
talking
that
about.
that has not had a play in court.
that's
So,
it's in the court of public opinion.
It's in the court of public opinion. What I'm trying to get at here is, and I hear exactly what you're saying. Of course, when it came out, everybody was like, "Aye, these judges, aish." With all the other rulings that we've been seeing coming from the court lately, this is one of those. Even Chebukati himself, even despite giving certificates to every other riffraff out there, this one Chebukati himself had said no because law. And
now-
then the custodians of law come out and say no law. You're like, yeah. Of course, it'll raise that issue. But the thing is, I fight for upholding the integrity of the judiciary
Me too.
in terms of whoever may be saying deal, 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 deal. The end result is implying that the judiciary has been tinkered with. The judiciary has been persuaded to vote to deliver a judgment in a certain way. And I'm wondering, is there any connection that has been proven, that has been brought out here at all? There's none.
What seems to be apparent is that the perspective being presented, among the things it hopes to achieve, is precisely what you're saying. Point fingers at the judiciary without looking at the details. When did the judiciary meet to determine this matter? They announced that they were going to give us their finding, which means the finding had been arrived at.
Yes.
Now, if the finding had been arrived at, is it in any way tied with these activities that we are seeing, or is it independent of it? Number one. And even in greater detail, and what gives the discussion gravitas, what exactly is that finding? What did they come out and say?
What did they say?
Yes, because upon that, we can then determine whether they were heading south or north.
Or north or wherever.
Yes.
Can I just read briefly
Please.
what went to court and
Yes.
what came out of court?
Please.
So Sonko moved to court and he is the petitioner. And it was Sonko versus number one, Swala Ibrahim Yusuf, who is a returning officer for Mombasa County, the IEBC, Dispute Resolution Committee, and Wiper Democratic Movement Party. What he wanted was a declaration that the returning officer and the IEBC have violated the rights of Sonko under Article 20 and others of the Constitution, a declaration that the returning officer and the IEBC have abdicated and violated the Constitution, a declaration that the Sonko is duly qualified as a candidate for the seat of governor of Mombasa City County in the forthcoming elections, an order for injunction restraining Wiper from nominating any other candidate for the position of governor of Mombasa, an order for certiorari to quash the decision of the returning officer and IEBC disqualifying Sonko as a candidate, an order to accept the nomination papers submitted by Sonko, and any other relief that the court may deem fit in this particular case. Right? The judges listened, they considered all the applications and everything that was brought. The respondents came in and they said whatever they were saying. It's all quoted in this 61-page judgment, at the end of which, I'm scrolling all the way to the end of which, 61 pages, I mean, yeah?
Indeed.
The judges are, by the way, it's Olga Sewe, Justice Stephen Gedenji, and Justice Anne Adwera Onginjo. The petition was allowed by Sonko. The findings and the conclusion of the court that the returning officer acted unreasonably, illogically, and unfairly when she rejected a copy of Sonko's degree as certified by an advocate and thus violated his rights. Number one. Number two, the returning officer breached the Constitution and regulations of the elections, general regulations, as the requirement that he presents a copy of the degree certified by the issuing institution was specific to him, and that in affirming that the returning officer's decision to disqualify him for failure to provide an original degree and a certified copy, the institution of issue, the IEBC, was in violation of the Constitution. That there being an appeal pending before the Supreme Court in connection with his impeachment, the rejection of Sonko's nomination papers was in contravention of the Constitution. Because there is what? That issue of whether he was fairly or unfairly impeached is still in court. He has not exhausted all avenues of appeal. So it was in court. And that's why they gave the order that the first, second, and third respondent, that's IEBC, the tribunal, and the returning officer, have violated the Constitution, that those three abdicated and violated the Constitution, that the petitioner is eligible under the Constitution to vie as a candidate for governor of Mombasa, and an order to quash the decision for disqualifying him. That's what they said. They're like, this is what was presented. We heard from Sonko, we heard from the IEBC, we heard from Wiper, and we considered everything, and this is what we're saying. Had they told us that they were going to deliver the judgment on Wednesday, yes, Sonko knew, the parties knew that the judgment was coming on Wednesday. They were not called after Uhuru's tour of Mwiki. Wait, by the way, Kujeni
iko judgment.
They
knew in advance.
So are those two linked?
Any link is tenuous at best, because the little knowledge that we know is that if a matter is in the Supreme Court, these lower courts can't touch it. I mean, simply put, they can't touch it. They have to wait for that particular court to make the determination. So, any blame that falls on this particular court with regards, and what I like about what they've pointed out, then it takes me back to something very simple. If you're talking about Constitution, let's look at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and the list of individuals whom they had, who had just some of the most questionable credentials possible on this particular planet. And yet, the IEBC has seen it fit to let these people proceed.
And I think that's a broader question that really does need to shine light on today. And that is the question of this integrity issue. That we're looking across board, and unfortunately, many times leaning on this law, which may be ambiguous to some, but at the end of the day, the law is the law. You know, there's a reason why people have called the law, other interesting names, but it is what it is. However, how highly is the integrity question being upheld today? That why must it be that there has to be all of this back and forth about the issue of, it's at the end of the day, it's the issue of integrity. It's the issue of integrity. Who are you putting into office? Who are you giving an opportunity to even attempt to be in office? And aren't we saying right now that that conversation needs to shift fundamentally to who you are putting in office? That if there is a shadow of doubt about your conduct, if there is a shadow of doubt about how you carried out operations, or what you do, or what you may or may not have taken or done, if there is that shadow, can we say, step aside first before we move forward? And that's the thing, that why are we so uncomfortable having a situation, or rather uncomfortable having a discussion and then further action as to individuals who clearly do not fit the bill? I don't care if you have more degrees than a thermometer. If you have a questionable character and you want to move into positions of government to rule a people, then we should be bold enough to make a decision and say no.
You know what also is brought to question, in my mind, are several pertinent issues that touch very, very, very at the heart of our Constitution, and more so at the heart of what we refer to fondly as devolution. You know, It may not be comfortable discussions, but it must be said and it must be discussed. Our county systems are tribal. You can call them regional, you can call them sectorial. The only time when there's a shift from what is predominantly tribal or ethnic is when it's a metropolis or a cosmopolis, where you have many people. And this one, former regional headquarters, which were called provincial headquarters, or even currently, what you have as headquarters of counties, represent in one way or the other a cosmopolis. People from all over the country coming and living within that area. But the unspoken rule about these matters is that when it comes to positions of electoral processes, like, say, the members of the county system, there is freedom and latitude in that people who represent this mixture of people can be represented. When you go high up to members of parliament, it is also accommodated. But when it comes to the position of governorship, there is now the discussion of, is this person a local? And on this hinges the question, who is a local? Because it is an unspoken law, but it is understood. As I said, when you have a metropolis or a cosmopolis, then that is a completely different discussion. But if you're looking at the majority of the counties that we have, unfortunately, that is the issue. Now, Mombasa is even trickier because Mombasa has had issues that are unique to Mombasa. At the heart of it has been the land issue, and around the land issue has revolved the matters that we've heard of, which manifested in what we call the Kaya Bombo, Mombasa, Si Pwani. Was it a question? Was it a statement? Was it a question of ethnicity? The question being, are we saying that what the numbers of people who represent what may be referred to as locals do not have enough gravitas to determine who it is that they want as their leader? There's a comment that was made in the Standard on page 7, which I think it meant well, but I consider it unfortunate. Entertainment and property magnate Francis Mulinge says Sonko is able to capture Mombasa voters because of his promise to lower the cost of doing business if elected. Everybody says this harmless statement. Then let's move on to the next one. Even if he loses on August 9th, he would have helped to suppress the belief that the up-country votes have no chance to run in Mombasa elections. This is not true, because all you need to look at the representation of people who've been elected to positions within that particular metropolis. What am I saying? I am saying that whenever you see a symptom, and I've mentioned Kaya Bomba, I've mentioned the Mombasa, Pwani Si Kenya issues, those are issues that arose, and I'm not certain that they have been addressed. When you have somebody who was a governor of a place like Nairobi, a man who clearly is popular, a man who clearly understands the basic and fundamental problems that individuals have, and he addresses them, so his popularity increases. It speaks of his popularity, but it speaks of the dire situation that most of our people are in. Now, what am I saying? I am saying the larger interests in Mombasa rotate and revolve around the port. It has to be brought into discussion. So what exactly are we seeing happening? That's the question I'm asking. What have we been seeing around this country? These huge debts we talk about, what is happening in these last hours before we have an election? And why is it that somebody who was impeached, despite all these telling other qualities he has, is now being given a second breath of life because we say the matter is in court, and indeed it is in court?
You see, like you've said, we start with the political party that nominated him. Okay? Wiper is a national party. It's not a new party. It's not a briefcase party.
It is not.
So Wiper, in all its wisdom, led by a senior counsel and has senior lawyers in the top ranks of this party, understood the law, understood the constitution, nominated an impeached man to vie as governor.
Yes, they did.
That is Wiper. And then there's the entire political landscape of the country. And when when Sonko was presented to Mombasa, you saw the people and their reaction to Sonko's entry.
Yes.
And they know this man had been elected as governor of Nairobi. This man was impeached as governor of Nairobi. Okay?
Yes.
They know. They know the issues that surrounded the impeachment and also the governors of Nairobi. They know. But they were like, okay, there are people who are considering Sonko. Sonko goes to the IEBC. IEBC, which has a list of very many pages from the EACC that tells them this person has question of integrity, this one has issues about their academic qualification, this one has a pending court case, this one has actually been found guilty by a competent court and has even been sentenced by a court, has an appeal going on. This one, IEBC clears the others. On what account? The law says exhaust all avenues of appeal. But on this particular one, the IEBC says the law is clear. There's an impeachment. Impeachment, Constitution has said, there's not issue about appeal here. You are impeached, you are impeached. What you're appealing is something else, is a process of impeachment. Are you...
You are impeached until proven otherwise.
Yes. The judges then sit and they come back and tell us, no, there's a case before the Supreme Court surrounding the impeachment. So, has not exhausted all avenues of appeal. Now you're like, okay.
The same story that IEBC has been singing over these other cases.
Yes.
And so the question is, when do we dabble with truth to suit specific circumstances? And you cannot have that as a situation. You cannot say that the truth will then use it to suit us when we want. I'm sorry, but that is what it looks like. That in one case, we're going to make it all right. We can use this. In another case, then we cannot. Unfortunately, the same people that you're talking about, CT, the same people you're talking about have issues that need to be dealt with. Why must it be one person who has to deliver that? You open the door to allow one in, you're going to open the door for everything, vermin and everything to fly in. And that is exactly what we are doing. That the integrity question must be asked at every turn. And if you allow this thing to happen, what you're doing is that you have opened the door and it will continue to happen. When are we going to be comfortable enough to have the conversation and say you cannot put somebody in office, or you should not be comfortable putting somebody who in office who is of questionable character?
Yeah. Which now brings the other angle to that question. And the other angle to that question is on justice. Fair administration of justice.
For everyone.
For everybody. Does the court judgment on Sonko uphold, 1, Chapter 6 of the Constitution, and 2, justice for Sonko? Does it? We're posing that question as well on our social media handles, SpiceFM KE on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram. Would like to hear from you.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We are having a conversation about yesterday's judgment of the 3-judge bench of the High Court. Justices Olga Sewe, Stephen Githinji, and Adwera Onginjo said that Mike Mbuvi Sonko was unfairly treated by the IEBC when they denied him a nomination as an aspirant and a candidate for the Mombasa gubernatorial race. Mike Sonko had gone to court. He had gone there challenging the decision by the returning officer in Mombasa, who said, number 1, this degree that you've presented, you have not presented the degree in the format we wanted it to be presented. And number 2, you are impeached. And when they went to court, the judgment actually also quotes the response from the IEBC. And in one of the judgment clauses, they say, in fact, there was a press release issued by the CEO of the IEBC on the 4th of June where he acknowledged that there's somebody else who they have cleared despite having been convicted by court or having going through a court process. Okay. They quoted, the commission received a report on one aspirant who had been convicted by the court and has since appealed the conviction. The commission reckoned that such an aspirant is protected by the provisions of Article 99 and 193 of the Constitution, which says that a person is not disqualified unless all possibilities of appeal and review of the relevant sentence or decision has been exhausted. So the judges said it's in our view discriminatory that the IEBC would in the same breath deny Sonko's candidature in the face of his pending appeal to the Supreme Court. In fact, when the first respondent, and this is the returning officer, filed her affidavit, she stated that Sonko failed to present proof of the pending appeal in time, implying that if Sonko had presented proof in time, then they should have made a separate decision. They also went further to say this is completely hogwash as well, because that case before the Supreme Court, the IEBC is a respondent. So the IEBC cannot say they are unaware.
Precisely.
They need proof of a case that they are party to. Nothing. So I said, for that reason, this is discriminating against Sonko. If you've allowed somebody else to vie, and the person that we're talking about here includes Major Waluke, who is a convicted felon, and he's been cleared to vie, surely, why not Sonko? The issue is, does this judgment uphold this chapter 6? We've been talking about integrity.
Eric, two eminent legal minds in this country have been in this studio, and the same question has been posed to them, and the response has been the same. It started off with our Chief Justice, Madam Martha Karambu Koome. And we asked the question, this issue of impeachment. He says, when you're impeached, you are impeached. Meaning you continue until the courts determine otherwise. But you're impeached. We asked the question of one, John Ekuru Longogi Okot. This man played a key role in the writing of this constitution. And he didn't even give it thought. He just said, excuse me, that sentence, until proven otherwise, you are guilty. It's not, he did not even give it, he didn't pause.
The former president of the LSK, who is also a candidate in this election, on the matter of impeachment, he said, we understand it to be.
Yes, exactly. So now, if there's that understanding, how then do you explain the IEBC's role in all these things when the head of the IEBC himself is a learned friend? How do they arrive at this decision that is contrary to what the EACE has pronounced? Legal minds, the highest in the land, have pronounced. How? Are we in the process of witnessing a travesty of the law whose consequences will come to bite us in the not too distant future? Because once you create this, what exactly do you think you've set in motion?
Which is what I was saying. You open the door, you will have no control of whatever can come into the house. You do not. Because who is to say who will not come tomorrow and say, well, if you've allowed that, then surely you must allow this. And if the precedent has been set by other people who have worse cases and have been cleared by the same IEBC, then how much more will you not stop somebody who has not even been convicted? This fella has not been convicted, and his case is before the Supreme Court. Right? So the ones who have been convicted, you IEBC cleared. This one has not even finished, and you've not given an opportunity. And that's what I'm saying.
This one has been convicted.
That's what I'm saying. No,
it's a two-step process set up in the Constitution.
Sure. Now,
impeachment. One impeached by the
has been impeached.
MCAs,
sure, but his case
confirmed
is
still,
by
sure. He's gone to court.
Said case has gone to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And by
the
the way,
same IEBC
it's like an appeal.
But the same IEBC has cleared those other ones. So why not clear this one? And that is what I'm saying. You've opened that door. There will be nothing, my friends, that will come before you tomorrow that you will then be able to give excuse for. You will have to allow everybody in, and that is what I'm saying. What are you upholding today? So the very clear answer to your question, does this judgment uphold the tenets of Chapter 6 of integrity? And it's obvious that it does not. Because who are you applying the law, the rule to, and then who will you not? Will you pick and choose who you will apply it to or not? You can't do that.
Although, if you look at it, maybe the judges are basically just pointing us back to this IEBC.
They are kicking the can down the road.
And this is what I wanted to say.
They are saying, look, this person is here claiming that he's been discriminated against, and is giving us evidence that other people have been cleared and yet he hasn't been cleared. Other people were cleared on lesser requirements for how they present their degree. He has been told, bring a certified original copy of the certified degree, and he's like,
the certified certification.
Why him?
Now, this is what I'm saying, that now what this judgment does is one of two things, right? It shows that, okay, so maybe we're just romancing this integrity. We're not face on with this thing. The second thing, what it does is that it is showing that IEBC has its pants down here, because it's also probably asking the question, IEBC, as you are clearing these people, maybe now we are shining the light on you. What are you actually doing? What are you actually doing?
You know, I see two different issues here. And the courts address what was before them.
Theirs is to adjudicate.
Yes, they addressed what was before them. Were they addressing the impeachment issue?
Nope.
No.
Were they addressing the integrity of Sonko? No.
No, they were dealing with this case that came before them.
Yes.
Discrimination.
That's it. And the IEBC, unfortunately, by its own activities, which we see with our own two eyes, if you have two eyes, unfortunately gives the impression that it's discriminatory.
See, Teeth, about 4 weeks ago, I told you, and I said, you know what? In all of these things, IEBC is just showing themselves the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything...
In their birthday suit.
That is it. And anybody will have right and reason to come later and say, hold on a minute, these fellas here did not operate in the way in which they ought to. And if you ask me, read between the lines here. The judgment also, the judiciary is basically saying, look here, the people that you should be looking at is this Boundaries Commission that you've given the responsibility to run credible elections in the country. And if they're not doing their job, perhaps you should be asking questions of them. Because discrimination, we've told you very well. IEBC clearly discriminated against this man. So who should you be asking the questions about the other individuals who've either been denied or accepted or affirmed to run in the election?
Can I perhaps ask another question? Because if I'm looking at the candidacy of many of the people we have in our system, from the very top most position to the MCA, is what sort of individuals are we willing to have as our leaders in this country? What is our threshold for determining who should lead us? Because we are saying it by our action and by the way we are going about these things, we are saying it very, very loudly and very, very clearly.
It would appear, so long as you have two seeing eyes and a beating heart, please, just come in, there's no problem. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. You open this door. Anybody today will come and ask, anybody else who has been impeached, their father, their mother, all of them will come and ask you, wait, then how about me? And what are you going to be able to say in that case?
You know, there's a country on this planet called Switzerland. They don't have counties, they don't have provinces, they have cantons. And their presidency is rotated within the cantons. It's not even a debatable, you know. You know next who is going to be the president, you know, because it's rotated. They have Germans, they have Italians, they have French. They have all these mixtures in that one country called Switzerland. If you look at the demarcation of areas within countries, it is in recognition of this diversity, not necessarily different, just the diversities that countries tend to represent. Now, you look at our country and the diversity represented by our counties. You live in Syokimau, it's in Machakos, for all intents and purpose. You tell me, with all the mixture of people who live in what is now the larger Machakos area, many of them don't even belong to the Kamba Nation. Do you see a situation where one of the many communities represented there, whether they are Embu, Meru, Kisii, being governor of Machakos?
No.
In the distant future, it is possible. As the metropolis expands, let's go now to Kiserian and the areas beyond. Same mixture. What am I saying? I am saying there are rules that are unspoken of, but they are understood. Even if you grew up in Mombasa, you're called Ambara. Given the community I come from, we're called Wagori. Okay? But the thing about the coast is that it is very accepting and welcoming. It is something you see in very many parts of this country as well. In fact, I could argue the whole country. Being accepted to live and to be part of that community, Kenyans don't have a problem with that. The problem they have is when they see you as a visitor wanting to now take a key leadership position. Kenyans have a problem with that.
Ledama Olekina has said it here. He has said, no, our visitors, our guests live with us, yes, but leadership roles, leave them to us, Bana.
It's not foreign anywhere. It's not a foreign concept anywhere.
It's global.
It's global. I look at Nigeria and I think that there are people who are northerners living in the south. There are southerners living in the north. You try and see an Igbo man wanting to be governor of Plateau State. It is not possible. You can live here, no problem. You are Nigerian as the day is long. But it will not happen. that you then say, yes, in fact, you can be the community leader and you're from the south living in the north. No problem. But that you want to come and now lead the people? Sorry. It won't happen.
You know,
It
Kenya
won't happen.
is unique in that you can lead. You can actually, their positions, you can actually even vie for. It is even acceptable. We give many examples. It's acceptable. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say the coast has many unresolved issues, because if you look at the owners of production within the coast, the majority are not locals. It's an issue. Land ownership. Yes, locals occupy large vast of lands. Now, the discussion will go to the sort of leadership that the coastal region has had and the focus that they have had. But it also tells you of how individuals who are essentially visitors have abused the hospitality that have been given to them by the locals.
But City, how do you draw a parallel between, okay, so the decision that the voter in Mombasa is going to make versus the qualification for candidates?
You see, I'm even not drawing a parallel. I'm throwing this thing up into the air so that the diversity of variables can be looked at. You see, that Sonko wants to stand, that has nothing to do with Sonko. Sonko wants to stand, that is his decision. I throw this gauntlet at the party leader who ought to have understood the dynamics of a place like Mombasa and the decision he made to actually place this gentleman and allow his party to have this position. Even before Wiper, a place called Changamwe has, for the longest time, because of the dominance of a certain community, they've had political leaders, and it wasn't considered odd. It wasn't considered odd at all.
Since you've brought in party
Azimio has
leader.
another party which is
Since
there.
you've
There's
brought in-
Awiti who wants to be governor of Mombasa.
Awiti has even been an MP of Nyali.
Yes.
And the reason is because the ethnicity of Nyali is predominantly people who come from the community he comes from and the popularity of the party at that particular point in time, though he actually didn't win on that particular party. What I'm saying is this. There are subtle issues of understanding that people need to have regarding the sentiments of the places they live in. That is really all I'm saying. Now, those sensitivities, if you're talking about an area that has the issues that Mombasa has had, continues to have, if you're blind to those issues, what do you think you are fermenting? What do you think you are introducing into the population? What do you think you are doing now? People will be quiet about it, but
You're
it doesn't.
accelerating us into the future. You've said in the future,
Yes.
this could happen. It's been seen to happen in some areas, even in the past.
It has.
Yeah, so why not this time? Why not bring a candidate who is not just being viewed as a member of this community, but as somebody who is a likable leader?
I think
Let's even remove the issue of integrity, of Sonko's integrity. Let's assume that Sonko had not been impeached, that didn't have integrity questions, all right? And then Wiper had nominated Sonko to vie for Mombasa. The reception that Sonko has received in Mombasa cuts across his Kamba community.
It does.
The same way in Nairobi, he got almost 1 million votes.
He did.
The Kamba are not 1 million in Nairobi,
No, they're not.
right? So it cuts across the tribe. This is the one candidate who is not viewed from that
Actually, it's
angle
one of
of
the very few
tribe.
candidates we have, politicians we have in this country, whose popularity cuts across every community. The point, that's why I said it is not him I'm pointing at. What stopped the Wiper party from nominating what I would call a local to that position and give them that support? What stops them?
the popularity of the local, the
I'm
local
talking about the
members.
optics.
Maybe they didn't have somebody who would draw as much appeal as this gentleman.
Precisely.
Sonko's
So
running
what does
mate,
that,
Sonko's running mate is a current member of parliament, is a popular member of parliament in that
in
constituency.
the most
right?
populous constituency
of
in Mombasa? Yes.
right? And Wiper had a conversation with his candidate,
Yes,
and they came to an agreement.
yes.
Because you had expressed interest in vying for governor, how about you support Sonko and you go as his running mate? And this what's his name?
Alimbo.
Alimbogo.
Yes,
He accepted.
yes.
So the party is just looking at their chances of winning. I mean, it's
Yes.
we have a coastal who is on the ticket.
As a deputy
Yes.
to someone who isn't, by all accounts, a local. Born there, lived there, not a local. I am merely expressing sentiments that may not be spoken of, but I am speaking of them because those are sentiments. You are saying that the party could not, why did they not support Ali Mbogo and give Sonko the deputy position? Why was Ali Mbogo not fronted as the leader from day one? The same popularity that Sonko has would have propelled this very same person in the same direction. Why? The sentiments and the psychology behind the thinking of ownership of a particular place. Why do you think, for instance, the issue of the SGR creates so much he and her and how? Because the thinking and the sentiment that the one asset that is locally owned doesn't seem to be benefiting, or used to benefit the locals, but now no longer does. They are local sentiments that when you ignore or when you place them in the second position, that's why the future question I'm asking, what do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing?
Back to the bigger issue, the issue of integrity. Are we upholding Chapter 6? Are we upholding the rule of law? Are we upholding justice?
I want to throw
from what we're seeing.
Sure. I mean, throwing a question at the leaders of said parties, for example, has there been a time where you will find party leaders, for example, the same ones who are corralling these individuals to make these decisions that they're making in terms of where you will run? Party leaders who will come out today and say, you know what, guys, it looks a bit dicey because of 1, 2, 3, and actually you have done. How about you do step aside? Do step aside and let's not muddy these waters. And let's get somebody else who will then push the cause of this particular part. Have we seen that happen? That party leaders say there's a problem here. There's an issue surrounding your character and the way in which you've carried yourself. Let's have that sorted out. And then you can join us later, should it be that this case was disproven. Have we seen that? That today the leader of WIPO will say, the leader of ODM, the leader of Jubilee, having individuals within their parties who have these character slurs. Have they said, you guys, this we cannot do? If truly these agendas that we are saying we uphold for the nation are true, and then there are individuals who will sully waters here, why won't you tell them, guy, Baba, just wait. Stand aside. Do we see that? Why? Why not? Why not? We're uncomfortable with having that situation. From the bottom to the top, we are uncomfortable with having that conversation to say, okay, you know what? You may have messed up here. And rather than for us deal with this situation back and forth, just step aside. We have party leaders who do bigger things, who are asking their members to do bigger things. And here we are saying an issue of integrity when it comes to the rule of law, when it comes to how you will lead people tomorrow, decisions that you will make when it comes to public funds, and you already have a stain on your character, and leaders cannot tell their members today to stand aside. We have... the problem is bigger.
Big.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it starts from that point. It starts from national leadership. If the national leadership of a national political party does not see an issue with nominating an impeached
In fact, they're even pushing you to the front.
I mean, if it starts from that point, if the IEBC then has, is dodging left, right, and center on how to disqualify, how to qualify,
and as selective bankers,
we will keep using this law thing for a long time, and we will not win. August 9th is coming. I think that's when Chapter 1 of the Constitution says this Constitution is made by we the people, and we have the sovereign power. So if everything else seems to be, all up in the air and failing, then it all comes down to the voter on the 9th of August.
It does.
If beyond the 9th of August, we see some of these people, a convicted fraudster is taken to parliament, an impeached governor is elected by other people as a governor, as somebody who has multiple cases in court, multi-billion shilling account frozen, is elected as a governor somewhere. If those things happen, then let's just go back to that Chapter 1 of the Constitution and give away that sovereignty.
Because we've actually given it away.
And say, there was a sovereignty that was given to the people.
There was a sovereign people that existed within the boundaries of this country at some point.
The people gave it away.
The people gave it away. Sovereignty is up in the air. It's up for sale. Who's the highest bidder? We can invite Elon Musk to come.
Anybody
can.
The
money he wanted to buy Twitter. He still has that cash. Can give him the sovereignty.
Were we told that by the 15th all these cases will be resolved? 15th is tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Right? Yeah.
Why don't we wait and see?